record on the computer, so we will have a copy of this, and I will live stream to my Facebook page as well. If you don't want to appear in the video, you can turn off your camera. We'll leave the mics open just to say hello to people, and then we will turn it over to Pamela for the presentation, and at that point I'll ask you to mute your mics just so we can hear her presentation. And we'll open it up at the end for people to ask questions again. And if you have any questions, you can also punch them in the chat, and I can ask Pamela to address. So welcome everyone. I see some familiar faces. Hi Cindy, hi Kate.
Hi, how are you?
We have Doug there too. Hi Laura, Elizabeth, Kate, Cynthia, Joan, Danielle. We have some familiar faces and some new folks who well, new to the Zoom calls perhaps. Welcome, this is my 21st, 22nd. Oh. If you could take one more trip presentation. This week I'm very pleased and excited to welcome Pamela with Micato Safaris. Pamela is going to give us a great overview of who Micato is and what they do and how they're different to other people, other safari operators. And I will just turn it over to you, Pamela. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Thank you, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you. Well, Jambo, everyone, thank you for joining me. My photograph is on the screen at the moment, and I've been going backwards and forwards to Africa since 1978. I know that ages me a little bit, but probably been in Africa 50, 60 times. So what I thought I'd do, I know that this pandemic has kind of stymied all of us, let's put it that way. But this is the time to start thinking about next year and traveling. Most people will plan a trip to Africa about 8 months, maybe even 12 months, 14 months out. And a lot of people that could not get there this year have already rebooked. And so we're experiencing new bookings as well as those people that were unable to go this year. So I think it is time to think about going to Africa. If you keep up with the travel magazines and online sites, you'll know that Africa is at the top of the list for 2021. Not only is it the greatest wildlife show on the earth, it also allows you lots of space. You can be alone in Africa and surrounded by wildlife. So very few cities, out there in open, fresh air, seeing the greatest wildlife show, having wonderful cultural interactions, like gorilla trekking. And as you know, most of your friends probably have already told you it is a trip of a lifetime. You will have friends that went to Africa probably 20 years ago and they're still talking about it. It does change people, and you do find that you may leave, your feet may leave Africa, but your heart never will. Most of you probably think this will be the first and only trip you ever do to Africa. However, 50% of you are going to go back. It's such a drawing. It pulls you back in every single time. So you will have the ability to see a lot of different species, get up close to the wildlife, and you will have fantastic photography as well. So this evening, what I thought I'd do for those that have never been to Africa, I'd run through a day on safari. So they know when people say to you, I've been on safari, you have an explanation of what actually goes on during the day. Then I thought I'd compare perhaps East Africa with Southern Africa. That's a big question. A lot of you will ask, where should I go in Africa? So this gives us an opportunity to compare the two, give you some helpful hints, tips about what to wear, where to go, when to travel. And then I'd like to talk to you a little about the amazing company that I work for, which is Micato Safaris, and how you can travel with us and why I think you should consider us. So first of all, I want you to understand that out of the 54 countries in Africa, COVID is very, very low. There's about 5% of the COVID cases in the world in Africa. Countries like Kenya, South Africa, Tanzania have learnt many years ago how to handle pandemics. So when they shut the countries down and closed their borders, Some of you might even remember the pandemic Ebola way back. So Kenya didn't have Ebola, South Africa didn't have Ebola, and they shut down very quickly, and they have very, very low COVID. So I don't think COVID is going to be an issue for you when you travel into Africa. We have clients in Africa as we're talking. East Africa opened up back in September, and clients started going on safari in Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda back in September. Yes, most of our bookings are into 2021, but the intrepid traveler decided this was going to be a great time to be in Africa, and it is. And so they're already there ahead of you. So let's talk about a day on safari. What do we mean by that? So first of all, whether you're in a lodge or in a camp, you're going to have a wake-up call very early in the morning. In a tented camp, you're going to hear a voice outside calling to you. And I'm going to use Kenya, the traditional safari destination, as the example. So here's someone arriving outside your tent, and they'll be calling Jambo, Jambo. That's your wake-up call. This is not breakfast. This is a hot drink, maybe a breakfast biscuit. You grab your things and you're in the Land Rover going out on your first game drive of the day. And what I mean by that is there's always 2 game drives each day. Doesn't matter what destination you're in, everyone does the early morning game drive and you do a late afternoon game drive. So it's very important to get out there at early light. So why do you do that? Well, animals are just like us. The first thing we need to find is a drink. So they need water and they need food. So as soon as they get up, they're on the move. And it's probably one of the most wonderful times to be out in Africa. So the vehicles get very close to the wildlife. You could possibly be sitting in a herd of hundreds of wildebeest, next to a lion pride, whatever. It can be extremely exciting because you just don't know what's around the bend or coming at you. You will be gone from your lodge and camp approximately 2.5 to 3 hours on each game drive. So just remember that. So take what you need at that time into the vehicle with you. So about halfway through your morning game drive, your guide will find a location where you can actually get out of the vehicle, stand up, get some fresh air, have a warm drink, talk about what you've seen, maybe actually talk about what you'd like to see. And then you'll proceed on your game drive, tracking the game, viewing for the game, looking for the elusive cheetah, and enjoying the morning ride. Breakfast is always back at your camp, unless it's not. Sometimes, particularly in East Africa, you'll come around a corner on the plains of Africa and your staff from the lodge or camp is out there cooking your breakfast in the middle of Africa. How cool is that? So once back at your camp and you've had your cooked breakfast, you have the latter part of the morning to fill in, and each camp is slightly different. Each camp offers different activities. You might be in an area where you can do mountain bike riding. You might be in an area you can do horseback riding. But the most popular activity really is going on a game walk or a bush walk. It's about an hour. You walk with a guide and you see things on foot that you really don't capture from a vehicle. This is one of the most popular things to do. If you're not up to walking, I usually find a location in the camp and I just sit there and watch Africa go past the camp. For those of you who are interested in a balloon ride, if you book the balloon ride, you will go up again, you'll be woken early, taken to the balloon site, and you'll launch the balloon and float about tree level across the plains of Africa for about an hour. It's a wonderful way to see the wildlife. When you come down, you'll have a champagne breakfast in the bush. You must understand that if you select to add the balloon ride in, you must forfeit the game drive in the morning. This would replace the game drive. You can't do both. Lunch is always in your camp or lodge. And I must point out the food in Africa is fabulous. If you have any dietary needs at all, it doesn't matter if it's gluten-free, whether you're a vegan, vegetarian, it can be taken care of. And Micato takes care of these kind of details. Once you've had your lunch, you have the early afternoon to do other things. Most camps do have swimming pools. They may have a masseuse. A lot of them have a gym. A lot of them have a spa. Or like me, I know there's a day going to be very long. I go and have a nap, so I'm ready for the rest of the day. So yes, we have the traditional call for afternoon tea. It's an English tradition, but let's be honest, you can have a cold drink, you can have a beer. It's a calling to gather for the second game drive. So you surround yourself, and I must admit, the chefs in the camp bake every day. They bake their own breads, they make their own cakes. So you will put on weight, it can't be helped. But you're gathering because you're about to go on that second game drive of the day. And you should be leaving your camp or lodge about 3:30 in the afternoon. And you may be in the same area that you were in the morning, or you may be in a completely different area. You may have not seen a leopard, and you've asked to go see if you could track for the leopards. Whatever that is, and whatever conversation you have, your guide's going to do the best to give you the greatest wildlife experience you've ever had. And as I said, this is what makes Africa different. Every moment is a different scene, a different experience. And yes, nowadays you can do wonderful things with those digital cameras. In the day when I first started going to Africa, I had a Minolta with long lenses and things like that, and we had to develop the film when we got home. Again, you're gone from your camp about 3 hours. So getting onto the late afternoon, just before that sun goes down, they find a place to stop and have sundowners in the Africa bush, and you watch the sun slowly go down. Just imagine happy hour in Africa. That's basically what the sundowners are. Again, it's a wonderful time to see the end of the day in Africa. And then usually you game view as you're making your way back to the camp. Most of you won't realize how far away that camp is, because you've been traveling along, experiencing all these different things, and time just flies by. Your dinner is in the camps and lodges, and they usually alternate where you have your night meal. It's usually about 8 o'clock at night, but a lot of people do like to dine out under the night sky. And the majority of camps and lodges now do have multiple areas where you have that opportunity to dine outside. On the screen is a typical boma, where you sit inside the boma and they cook your meal outside and bring it to you. Your day is long. You usually end up around a campfire or a bonfire. You're having a nightcap. The stories are fantastic. They get taller every minute. You know, that cheetah that was next to the vehicle was actually sitting in your lap. People dine out on these things for about 20 or 30 years, but it's a wonderful way to end the day. And I usually escape to my tent or my room as quickly as possible, because I know that next day on safari is going to start again with that early wake-up call outside my tent.
Excuse me, Pamela. I have
Yes?
a couple of questions. Would you like me to ask them as we go along or
Sure.
at the end? Okay.
You can, yeah.
One gentleman asked, halal meals, are they possible?
Sorry. In some places, yes, but they have to be brought in. That's a very specialty situation. Even in South Africa, you have to use special kitchens, and the food must be brought in for that.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it's not standard, yeah.
Another person asked, the climate, weather, is there a best time to visit Africa? And of course, that's going to depend on what they
Well,
want
it's
to see.
coming. It's coming. I'm going to
Stay
get
tuned,
there in a minute.
Danielle. We'll have more on that.
Yeah, okay, we're off. Now, as I said to you earlier, people ask things, you know, where do you think I should go? And that's a very difficult question, because every part of Africa is different, and I really don't know what your interests are and what you want first. So let's start with East Africa. The iconic traditional safari destinations of Kenya and Tanzania, and also gorilla trekking in Rwanda is very special as well. So here we go. Peak season is the dry winter months. So you can see June through, say, mid-October. That's the peak season. And why dry winter months? No rain and moderate temperatures. So it's a wonderful time to be in Africa. There are other times equally good for East Africa. Early in the year, January through March, lots of baby animals running around. October, maybe into November, you do get afternoon rain. And we do have a lot of people that want to have the festive season, December, Christmas, New Year, in the heart of Africa. But your peak season is dry winter months, which really translates to your summer here. So that's the best time for East Africa. Now, East Africa, Kenya, Tanzania are the traditional destinations for safari. What you see all over the plains of Africa, these beautiful acacia trees dotting for miles and miles out in front of you. The plains of Africa have large herds, hundreds and hundreds of wildebeest. Lion prides could be 23, 25 to a pride. So you have that traditional scene, and I'm sure you've seen it in the movies, Out of Africa, Born Free, Lion King, all those scenes that you see in the movie is East Africa. And one of the things I'll say about East Africa is the majority of your time in Africa will be spent in safari lodges and camps. You may choose to do Kenya and Tanzania together. You may choose Kenya alone, but in each area that you go to, each different camp has different species and different experiences. But understand that you probably have 2 days at the beginning of your trip in a city, and then you're in the Africa wilderness. It is the home of the traditional tented camp. So I put on the screen a tented camp for you. Yes, you can see solid floors. You can see there's some canvas involved, all creature comforts in it. You know, showers, flush toilets. It's like a hotel room that has some canvas. So you have your creature comforts, and it's a wonderful feeling to be in a tented camp. You may also consider adding on gorilla trekking to see the mountain gorillas in Rwanda. This truly is a life-changing moment to sit next to one of the silverbacks. If you're not up to it, that's fine, but a lot of people are making an effort to support Rwanda and go to see the gorillas. So I get many, many questions about the wildebeest migration. Remember, it is the wildebeest that migrate. Okay, so elephants don't, lions don't, you know, most of the species don't migrate, but we always get asked about the migration. My advice to you, if you're considering going to East Africa, go in a peak season or a prime season to see as many species as you can. And if you happen to be there when the wildebeest are on the Kenya side or the Tanzania side, you will see the very large herds. You can sit amongst them. You can be surrounded by 1,000 wildebeest if you want. But most of you have seen cable TV. And what they focus on is when the wildebeest cross the rivers between Tanzania and Kenya. This is very hard. Anyone can't predict this. Let's assume, as they do, the herds start to gather and make a big herd late May. They start traveling across the Serengeti Plains in Tanzania, say in June. Now, if there's no food on the Serengeti Plains, they'll pass up the plains very, very quickly and cross into Kenya in the belief there'll be more food in Kenya, which means they could cross as early as mid-June. However, if 1.5 million wildebeest have enough food in the Serengeti Plains, they will move very slowly up and cross more traditionally in early July or mid-July. Sometimes they've done it twice. They've gone into Kenya, didn't like it, gone back to Tanzania. They usually cross back to Tanzania in mid-October. But nobody can predict exactly when they're going to get across these rivers. If you're there and you're close to it, we of course will get you there. But one of the things you must remember is that there are things in those rivers, and they're looking for food as well. So just remember, sometimes it's not a pleasant sight seeing the herds cross the river. And also, anyone else that's in the vicinity of the river where they're crossing will want to see it too. So you're going to have to share the viewing with other people. So again, I emphasize, I think I want to see as many things and experience as much as possible. And if I'm lucky enough to see a river crossing, I'd be thrilled, but I'm happy to see the wildlife of Africa. Now let's pop down to Southern Africa. It's half a continent away. The iconic country here is South Africa. That's the large country at the bottom of Africa. And we also take people into Botswana, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and we actually pop into Zambia to see Victoria Falls. I think from the map you can see how large South Africa is. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the peak season for game viewing is June through October. That's true of South Africa as well. It's true of most safari destinations. However, if you're thinking about going to South Africa, what you must realize is your game viewing, the best game viewing in South Africa is up towards the Kruger National Park and the Sabi Sands Reserve, which just happens to be about 1,200 miles away from Cape Town. Two different weather patterns completely. You can have a dry winter month up in the parks, but it could be wet and rainy in Cape Town. So in Cape Town, your wet months are really July, August. I think most Americans can imagine San Francisco in winter. That's what happens in Cape Town. So quite often when people talk to me about wanting to go to South Africa, I talk about the shoulder seasons, maybe going in March, maybe going in the spring or fall months and missing that wet weather in the Cape, but having fantastic game viewing anyway. And in South Africa, the game do not migrate, so they're always there. So perhaps choices are slightly different, even though the peak season is the same. And many people want to go into the Cape. Yes, they have a 300-year-old wine industry there and some of the best Cape Dutch architecture you'll see anywhere in the world. You have a wonderful city experience. Cape Town is beautiful. You can see that flat-tabled mountain in the photograph. That's Table Mountain. You can go up on the cable car and sit at the top and stare out over the end of Africa. A city full of restaurants, museums, shopping. They have penguins on the beaches there, whales in the ocean. And you can then add on a wonderful safari. So one of the big differences with South Africa and East Africa is in South Africa, you probably will spend 3 to 4 days on safari. The rest of the time you'll be doing something completely different. You may be having a city experience and you may be adding on something like Victoria Falls to your itinerary. So very different. East Africa, most of your time is with the wildlife and the Maasai people. In Southern Africa, it's split up into different adventures. Also in Southern Africa, we have Botswana, which has become very popular because of the Okavango Delta. And for Botswana, I would stick to the prime season, June through early October. Most people don't realize, but the Okavango Delta, the water goes up and down depending on the weather and depending on the season. Camps are small, so you get that alone in Africa feeling, but you might also want to combine Botswana with South Africa. It's very hard to see the big five in Botswana. There's only one region where you can see rhino, so you may want to combine both destinations. And as I said, we take people to Namibia and into Zimbabwe, into Wangi National Park as well. So all these things can be considered. So just quickly, the differences. In South Africa or Southern Africa, you have very different landscapes, high mountains, oceanfront. You have city experiences. You can hike, bike, everything. So you have the urban and the rural. And it's a very mixed time. Probably you'll spend 3 or 4 days out of 10 or 12 on safari. The rest of the time you'll be doing something very different. And in East Africa, you'll have your city experience when you first arrive for the first maybe 2 days. And then you're in different wildlife areas. And you're out there with the Maasai people or the Samburu people, and you're having your wildlife experience. So very different situations. Yep, Africa's a year-round destination. My best advice to you, if you are considering any time for Kenya and Tanzania, try desperately to avoid April. Obviously, lots of rain, lots of water. South Africa can go year-round. Just remember what I mentioned about Cape Town. And then Botswana, tried to stay in season. That at further down the year you get, end of October, November, becomes very hot, very muggy. The water gets very low. So try to stay in season there. And shoulder seasons are good in all these destinations. So how can you travel with Micato Safaris? Well, we have about 3 ways you can travel with us. For those of you who are kind of independent, you like to do your own things, we custom build an itinerary especially for you. you're the kind of person that really doesn't want 2 nights in one place, you really want 4 or 5, you're interested in different things, you want to travel around independently and see what you want to see, we do custom itineraries for you. Obviously, we want to make it very special for you, so we make sure we have those moments added in for you. The other way is to join a small group. And when countries are open, everything we do is guaranteed. Micato does not cancel on people. So even if you're the only 2 there, we'll take you on your safari. So what is a small group? A small group is 18 people in East Africa and up to 12 in Southern Africa. We like to keep it at that count because we have our own staff on the ground there, and we want a personal relationship between our safari guide and everyone on the group. The larger those so-called small groups get, the harder and more difficult it is to build that personal connection that you want with your guide. So at the moment, we've always in the past only had 6 people in a 9-seater situation, but now under COVID, we're complying with the 60% rule, so there'll be 4 people in each vehicle, so spread out. And for the small groups, I just want to mention, we realize that, during this COVID time, people are trying to make decisions about next year, but not really knowing what to do about it, and putting down a 20% deposit now is not the best idea. So what we have for you is a $500 per person deposit to hold space on one of the small group departures that you think you'd like to do next year, and then sit tight till mid-January. We'll come to you in mid-January and say, okay, you're going to go? Now's the time to put your deposit down and move forward with going to Africa. If you decide, no, I don't want to go now, you'll get your money back. We're not going to hold your $500 or anything like that. Or you say, well, I'm not ready yet. Can I put my $500 to hold space on something further down? Fine, you can do that as well. But because we're getting filled up very quickly, we want everyone to have an opportunity. And we realize at the moment we're in this kind of void, and you want to go, but you're not sure you want to put the deposit down and things like that. We understand, but we also don't want you to miss out. And also, if you're sitting there with a family, if you're sitting there with a small group of friends and you're thinking, yeah, we can go on one of those small group departures, yes, you can. And if you want to make it private, we can make it private just to you. That means that you would have your private guide, your private vehicles. So you would have this private experience. We understand that, maybe we'd like to put 12 on the group departure and you've got 6 or 8 or whatever, but you just don't want the other 4 with you. And we understand that as well. So you can have a private experience, and that $500 deposit applies to private as well. So why would I hope you'd think about Micato? I could go on and on about all the awards Micato have won through the last 50 plus years. Yes, we've won the top safari outfitter 9 times in Travel and Leisure. Yes, we're the only tour operator in their Hall of Fame. Think about that. We're a small family-owned, specialized safari company, and we're the only tour operator in their Hall of Fame. But it's not about awards. It's about how we feel about our clients and our guests and how we treat them. We've been around for 50 plus years. We're financially stable. We have no debt, and we're going to be here for another 50 years. It's all about giving you the experience in Africa so you'll come back and you'll talk to other people about coming. So our prime priority is giving you an experience and keeping you safe while you're doing it. All our guides and full staff have been trained by CDC now and World Health Organization. They're all certified. And we've always had flying doctor available in case you had trouble or fell ill in the bush. So we've been taking care of people for well over 50 years and intend to do it well into the future. So how do we do it? We're a luxury safari outfitter. Well, the first thing we believe in is that your experience should be seamless. So how do you do that? Take care of every detail. There's a wonderful expression, Hakuna Matata, no worries. And that's what we feel. We have full-time staff in Africa. We don't farm out. We don't subcontract. Our guides are some of the top-rated guides in Africa. They not only are your guides, they're your helper, they're your friend. Most clients want to take them back to the United States, but they're there to make your experience special for you. I've talked to you about our vehicles. Yes, we have our own fleet of vehicles, particularly in East Africa and some parts of Southern Africa, specially designed with extra suspension in them. And we used to have 6 people in the guide in the vehicles. However, now down to 4. Most companies are following suit, and it's up to us to put that magic out there for you. We have a unique second team. It's a concierge team. They normally don't travel in the bush with you. They're in the major city centers, but they're available 24/7. And this team makes it seamless. Okay, we've all arrived in country and the airline lost our bags. So they have an emergency kit for you. They get the information. They have the headache of tracking that bag and trying to get it to you, not you sitting in the room trying to phone the airport to find out where the luggage is. You broke your glasses, how are you going to get them fixed? The camera's not working, you need another chip. And yeah, the biggest problem they handle is people arriving without prescription meds. And that's the headache, but they take care of it. They're there to take care of all those details that niggle at you when you're traveling. And yes, we like to feel that you're part of the family. So we do gift you quite a lot of things. And one of the things you'll get before you depart is the Marmot Design Micato bag. You'll notice it's got wheels on it. And it holds about 33 pounds, 34 pounds of luggage. And I can hear most ladies going, oh, gracious me. Believe me, you can fit whatever you need for a safari into this bag because we pay for valet laundry all the way. So if you want your clothes cleaned every day, we can get it done for you. So you don't have to have a whole set of clothing for safari because we'll clean it whenever possible. And you can come home with a luggage full of clean clothes. So people ask us, what should we wear? Obviously, no camouflage. I wouldn't go for bright colors in the bush either. On the photo behind me, you can see the Maasai warrior in red. So a lot of animals in East Africa, when they see red, they think you're the Maasai warrior coming after them and they'll take off. So neutral colors. You don't have to specifically buy a safari outfit, but something in the neutral colors works really well. Medical requirements. Your CDC advise you to take anti-malaria tablets, and you should. There are only about 2 destinations that require yellow fever inoculations, and we'd let you know if you're going to those. And with the COVID-19 at the moment, most countries are requiring a COVID negative test at the moment. Each country is slightly different. So for Kenya, you would need to get a negative test within 96 hours of arrival. Again, our specialists will help Sheila get this information to you and parlay it down so you understand it. Any other inoculations that you take, it's because your doctor has talked you into them. So my tip is I always check my tetanus. You can always stand on something in a foreign country or in the US. So that's the one thing I always check. Other than that, I just take my anti-malaria tablets. We've included all the gratuities, everything. How many times have you arrived in country and the first thing you have to do is find an ATM or a bank because you have to tip the porter before you even get out of the airport? That's not what we do. We've included all of that. Airport porters, people that serve you breakfast, even the big tips as you leave Africa and you leave your guide behind. We've done it all. We've taken care of all of that. You should not reach in your pocket and worry about tipping people as you're traveling around. That's not what going on safari is all about. All your meals are included. Yes, you obviously have to have all your meals in the camps and lodges, but also in the cities as well. We don't want you hunting for a place to have a sandwich at lunchtime or something, none of that. We make sure that it's taken care of. And yes, you are welcome to have a regional glass of wine or beer with your meals. So as I mentioned, We're one of the top luxury suppliers, but we don't own any camps or lodges. We prefer to select where our clients need to be. Obviously, if I was going into East Africa, I'd love to have the option of staying in a tented camp. That's my personal preference. But we have the traditional lodges, we have the traditional tented camps. Just remember that there's always that flush toilet and bathroom, veranda. It's very, very comfortable. We have large lodges, small lodges. We have wine estates, city hotels, small city hotels, private homes. We put the client where we think you would like to be. And yes, you probably view a lot of itineraries out there that look very similar. They're not similar in details. So here's something to think about. We put you into this lodge and you wonder why you're staying there, but you've opted for the balloon safari. This lodge that we have you in is half an hour away from that early morning launch. You may be with another operator and they've put you in a similar camp, and you have an hour and a half in a vehicle to get to the daylight liftoff. So sometimes the details are not seen on a written piece of paper, but they're very, very important. This is what we want for you. We want you to pull back the drapes and be in Africa. And for those of you who are family orientated, those of you who perhaps have intergenerational families or have that wonderful grandmother that's going to pay for you to go to Africa, these kind of groups, they want privacy. And we have private villas, private bush homes. This happens to be a villa in South Africa, 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. You have your own chef, your own butler, house staff, swimming pool, your private guide, your private vehicles. And you want to sit there for a week. That's what we do. We have a lot of relationships with these kind of properties as well. For us, it's very personal. We are family owned and family run. And Jane and Felix Pinto live in Nairobi. They actually have a home down in Cape Town as well. Felix is in his 90s. And since they started the company back in the 60s, every guest that has any time in Nairobi are invited to their home for a meal, to sit down and chat with them. It's a highlight, it's a cornerstone of Micato safaris. And if you go, you will meet them. And they want to make sure that your safari is what you expected it to be. So we know travel brings everyone closer and makes the world smaller, and that's part of the reason why people go back to Africa time and time again. So the heart and soul of Micato, our passion, this is why we exist, is we have a 1-for-1 for many, many, many years. So for every person that travels on safari with us, we educate a slum child from start of school to graduating high school. And that's the most important thing I can tell you about Micato safaris. In the heart of one of the largest slums in Nairobi, we have built this community center, which has libraries, computer rooms for everyone in the slum. We have women's groups, we have preschoolers, we have projects. We started way back with digging the first water well in the slum area. But for you, just by going on safari, you're helping us tremendously and changing a child's life. At the moment, through the COVID, the library and the computer rooms and the schools are closed. In fact, we just recently opened the library again. We're opening the computer room with spacing, and our children are finally getting back to school. But during this time, our teachers and ambassadors have been going hut to hut, educating children. And for the last couple of months, they found families were starving. So we started with our America Share funds, buying food for families that were in the dire needs. And you are able, if you have time, we will take you, and you don't have to, but if you would like to visit the center and see part of what we're doing, you're welcome to share that with us. Our second nonprofit is Huru International, and it's for young girls. We have a factory where we employ women who make monthly supplies, reusable supplies for young girls. They go out into all the villages across East Africa, educating the girls and giving them necessary supplies. During COVID, well, The law was you needed a mask to step outside. So we hired more people into our factory, and half the factory kept making the girls supplies and the other half started making masks. So again, during COVID, we were very fortunate with the donations, and we were able to make somewhere between 80 and 100,000 masks and give them out to people in the slums. As I said, this is the heart and soul of Micato. We also are helping a township in the Cape Town area of South Africa. We call it Red Hill. It's a township of about several thousand people, no schools, no facilities, no anything. And we've built a community center there as well. And if you have time on your itinerary and you want to see it, we'll make sure you get to see that as well. We're here to give you those amazing life-changing experiences. You'll see some incredible places, incredible scenery, and yep, we'll get you really up close to the wildlife. Don't worry about the photographer, he's safe in the vehicle. Obviously, he's hoping that the cheetah doesn't do any damage to that very expensive camera, but you can just be sitting there and have something walk right past the vehicle. And yes, you'd be helping a child with an education that can get them out of the slum, get them a job. And it's a tremendous thing that people do for us. So Sheila, have I got any questions?
Yes, we have a few typed in here. So, and obviously people can come on the screen as well and ask questions directly. But let me just thank you, Pamela, at this point for coming on. You know, you skipped over your awards pretty quickly.
We have too many.
There are too many. Oh, we had some folks who had difficulties joining, so we have a few joining now. If you had trouble with the link, please know that I am recording it and I will send you the link afterwards. But the Travel and Leisure one, you've won that 9 times in a row, and that's a really important award for people to be aware of. But you're also Virtuoso partners of mine. I've been in Virtuoso for over 10 years now. I go to Virtuoso Travel Week each year. I meet with the Pinto family and learn about Micato in detail. And I just love what you do, especially with the education. You know, one of the things with travel, there's this whole focus on sustainability and sustainable, making the place better for the fact that you've gone there. And the world has stopped traveling, obviously, for 7 months. We're starting to see travel start to come back. But I think the new push is going to be regenerative travel, where you're not only making it better, but you're helping them pull out and regrow. And certainly what Micato is doing with education is just tremendous. So kudos to you guys for that.
Thank you.
Let me just go to some of the questions I have. Danielle, you were one of the people who asked about climate and weather early on. I think we addressed your question, but if you have anything remaining that you'd like to touch on, please let me know. When you posed the question, I said it really depends what you want to see and where you want to go. And Pamela, I think you covered that in great detail. Thank you. Nora's asking, the animals don't really migrate, but they are moving to look for water or food. Is that not right? And I think you answered that as well, Pamela.
Yes, in East Africa, the biggest migration is the 1.5 million to 2 million wildebeest, and they move country to country in search of food. But in Southern Africa, because of the terrain and because of the water supply and everything, the animals don't migrate. It's a completely different terrain. You're not going to see open plains as you do in East Africa. It's very round the corner you go and there's the elephant, and around the next corner there's the zebras. They have learned over many years to stay in their general reserve areas. That's completely different in East Africa. They do. But yes, animals, no matter where you are, must find water, and they usually stay close to water. But East Africa historically has a lot of drought, and they're forced to those waters that have water in it, you know, river that hasn't dried up, watering holes that are still there. So it's easy to get next to them.
Laura put in a comment about the animals being territorial, but I think that goes to what you were You were saying.
Yes, it depends. Cats are territorial. They mark their areas. It's very similar to cats here. But yes, yeah. And a cheetah will mark its area, so another cheetah will not come into that territory. And that's when you see some fights, if they get into each other's territory.
Laura's asking if you go to other countries that you didn't mention. Burundi?
No, we are a safari company, so we stick to what we believe is the best safari areas. Quite often get asked about going into areas on West Africa or Ethiopia, which has got some wildlife, but it's more cultural than anything, more historic. I've been asked about North Africa, Egypt, Morocco. The family has stayed with their specialties. This is what we know best. This is what we special. So we don't go around the globe and we don't go everywhere. We go where we have the experience. And the original family came out of India, and they still maintain a home in Goa, India. And we do have full-time staff in India that do similar programs in India, where we handhold our people going around India. But that's all.
Terrific. Nora has a question. Why is it that animals in Africa are so willing to let people near compared to wild animals here? It seems that tourism is helping communities so that there is less pressure on animals by way of poaching.
Yeah, those are two different questions.
Oh, pardon me. Okay.
Okay, well, I understand. First of all, the poaching in Africa in the last, say, 3 to 4 years was increased dramatically because certain Asian countries believed that it was a cure. Rhino horn, elephant tusk, ground down would be a cure for cancer. Okay, so in a lot of countries, Kenya, South Africa, where they've worked very hard to save rhino and elephant, suddenly we're imploding with poachers. And it's not necessarily the guy that goes out to poach, it's the other people that make the money. But in all cases, every country stepped up. And in Kenya, they have 24/7 guards that just follow the rhino around. In Tanzania, you have most of your rhino in the base of the Ngorongoro crater, because the only way you could get it out of there is up the 1 or 2 roads, which are heavily manned. So they put it down there so you can't get at them. South Africa, again, 24/7 guards on it. So poaching is a big problem. But a lot of the countries do have large elephant herds and have tremendous protection on the rhino. And they have all sorts of things, drones, aircraft, they have dogs, tracker dogs. There's lots of programs that go out and do this for the wildlife. What was the other part of the question? I'm sorry.
I think it was the pressure of
Yeah.
Is that right, Laura? You want to come on the screen?
Yeah, I guess I confused things. I didn't realize it was going to look like one question when I put a second one in. Well,
I think your question was why do animals kind of come? Yeah.
It was about like I just been reading a little bit about the elephants, and it was pointed out on one website I was looking at that certainly when there's tourism in the area, the communities have less motivation, I guess, to poach or whatever. So I just wondered if you were looking at, those communities in particular at all, or if it's just generally true.
Yeah, there are a lot of community. The Micato safaris and the Pinto family are involved in so many projects. We try to stick to just the couple that are obvious. But yes, most of the camp owners, most of the conservation areas that are owned by local tribes, over a number of years now have been encouraged to bring tourists into those areas because that's the way they can make money. For example, the Maasai used to go out and kill lions to become a man. They don't do that anymore. If a lion is attacking their cattle, you can be out in the Mara in a game drive and here comes the Maasai with their cattle right through the middle of the Mara where the lions are, and they're just traveling along. And a lion attacks. there are many programs that said, okay, a lion has killed it, but we don't want you to kill the lion. We'll replace your cattle. So there's just innumerable projects throughout Africa that have proven to local people that they have a great wildlife in their backyard. They should experience it, but they need to keep it, right? And so projects are all over the place, and we've been involved in a lot of different things. As I said, I just touch on the main ones because I don't have time to list them all down. But you're right, where you can bring in some tourists who like to see animals and get up close to wildlife but not harm them, then it feeds back into the local communities, which uplifts them, right? And they don't need to go out and kill game. What happens is in drought years and desperate years, and you have people coming across your borders, usually in hope to kill some plains game for food. But, you know, some wise person gets a hold of them and says, you know, if you can go in and kill an elephant and bring the tusk out for me, I'm going to pay you this. And it might feed the family for a year. It's nothing to us, but to them it's, you know, a lot of money. And so they risk it and they try to do it. It is the people behind the people that need to control that side of the situation.
And that's your whole ethos is about conservation and
yes.
sustainability. So it's certainly education over time, but also if the local people have a seat at the table
yes.
in protecting the animals, and they get to benefit from the animals in a different way as an
yes.
economic driver, it becomes a different matter. Pamela, may I invite you to stop sharing, and we'll bring people's faces on who want to
okay, certainly
have their faces on. And then folks can ask a question directly if they choose. There we go.
There you are. You're back on the screen.
We have a question from Laura. Laura, do you want me to read it, or do you want to?
Oh, look at that photograph. Someone's been gorilla trekking. Hakuna Matata.
I was in South Africa, and they're training these dogs to protect the cows and the sheep and so on, so that the farmers won't kill the cheetahs that are coming.
Yeah.
The dogs keep the cheetahs away, and then they don't get shot.
Yeah.
So, but it's been very successful. They've trained many dogs, and they give the dogs to the farmers, and then that saves the cheetahs.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
Even in East Africa, they have like big old hound dogs. I like to call them that. And they train them to go out and track the poachers, you know, in the wild bush. It's an amazing, yeah, there's all sorts of programs like that, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thanks for your display and your African sign and getting into the mode.
Well, Laura is a very enthusiastic traveler, and she's
wonderful.
How many countries now, Laura?
158.
158.
So another 37 more to go, and 20 of them are in Africa. That's why I was asking if you went to other countries. I've been to 30 of the African countries, 20 more to go. The big place.
It's enormous. People don't realize the size of that continent. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
Well, I remember when Ebola was happening and everybody was so fearful about Ebola. And one of the great tools that came out at the time is actually just taking the continent of North America and laying it on top of a picture of a map of Africa, and then taking UK and every other country, you know, just to show the total size of Africa is just huge, obviously.
Yeah. Nora, I can see your background. Do you support a school or a village?
Well, no, this was, I went to Rwanda in 2014. I haven't done the number of countries that Laura has at all. But I just thought I'd go quickly look for a photo from that trip. And this was taken inside of a little building in a village in sort of North Rwanda, not far, if I remember correctly, it's not far from, I went on the gorilla trek. And this was an afternoon where I got to be taken around to the village.
Nice.
Different settings, and it was just so fun. You can't really see everybody there, but you know, all the little kids were just so thrilled to have.
They're so happy. They're so happy.
Yeah, and you know, I took pictures of them, and then they would have to run over to see what it looked like on the little camera, you know. But they were very welcoming. It was
Yeah.
terrific, yeah.
Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions for Pamela while we have her on? You don't have to come on video if you're not comfortable doing that, but you will either have to type it in or ask them if you turn your microphone on. No.
All's quiet.
Oh, well.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I'm wondering about the South Africa about tours that either do a combination of safari and the wine regions. And do you do the garden route, or?
You can do it. You know, it depends on your timing. You know, it depends how much time you have. You know, if you're, say, spending 10 days on the ground and you want to do Cape Town, safari, maybe Victoria Falls, you'll be very tight on time. You know, if you've got expendable time and you can do the 2 or 3 days up the garden route, you can do that. Or some people just go part way up to see the whales or sharks and that, and then come back to Cape Town and fly up. So there are several things you can do.
So the wine areas, they are all around Cape Town. So
the best wine areas is about 45 minutes outside Cape Town, centered around some of the small wine towns like Stellenbosch, Franschhoek, Paarl, and there's a host of wineries in that immediate area. So you could do, I mean, some people like to go out and stay out there in the wine areas, but some people don't have that time, so they go out for the day. So again, it depends on what your interest is, you know. But yes, the best wine area in the whole of Africa is just outside Cape Town.
So are the tours organized that you fly there, you decide when you're coming and going, and then you join a tour?
No, we have our own staff on the ground. We do have brochures, a website, everything like that. And you can take a look at the small groups if you want to do that. If you want to plan something for yourself so that you go at the right date and you want to spend more time in the wine area, or maybe you want more time with restaurants and things like that, we plan it out for you as an individual. So you have the options of either an organized situation with one of our staff taking care of you, or planning it out as an individual, and again, having one of our guides be with you.
And that comes back to your differentiation of the types of trips you do, Pamela. The classic is the bespoke. It's totally customized to you, just whoever is traveling in your party. But then you do have the classic groups where you have
yes, it's classic groups.
Where you have scheduled dates, right?
So if you were talking about South Africa, the small groups go up to 12 people. You know, we'll go with anyone on a small group, but I mean, they go up to 12 people. But some people have very special interests. Some people wanted to do safari but go on an archaeological dig. We have clients that want to fly out across the plains of Africa, just like the movie, you know, out of Africa, right? So these kind of specialties, we create the journey from scratch. And it may be you just don't want to spend just 3 days here. You want, you know, 4 days there and 5 days there. You want it completely different. Then we have to build it for you so that you get what you want. The small groups are designed to make sure that everyone has the highlights that they expect on a safari, right? So we've gone and taken them where we know they're going to be thrilled to go. But it is a set pattern with our staff.
Now, if you wanted to take, I'm just imagining that I would be traveling on my own, and which is why I'm thinking about a group, because you hear about safety and so forth. Yeah. So if you wanted to join a group in South Africa, you wanted to do some safari, but also cultural, let's call it, say that, and wine and so forth. Would you advise
most itineraries for South Africa include the winelands, Cape Town, and safari. That's pretty standard. It's pretty standard. And yes, a lot of single people that, we have single people that say, I travel on my own drum. And yes, in a case like that, that have their own, our safari guide helping them all the way. And other people say, well, I'd like a little bit more of other people with me. It's just so you sit and have a meal and have someone to talk to, and they like the small groups. And so they book into the small groups. But there's about 10 or 11 small group itineraries with multiplicity of departure dates that you can just view and see which one fits you best. Okay. And Sheila can get that
And
to
then you could build, and then you could build days before and after.
Yeah, if you wanted to say, I have this specialty, I'm a heart surgeon, I want to spend a couple of days at a hospital, I'm this, I'm that, you know, we would then add the little module for you, and then off you go. Yeah, just about, we never, we're not a company that says no, we're a company that says, tell us what you want, and we'll figure this out, right? That's what we do.
A couple of other questions
Great,
from
sounds
someone
great.
who joined a bit late, I think. So Mari, I'll send you the link and you can certainly see the recording, but she has one question, what are the accommodations like? And I think you kind of went through that, Pamela.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Basically, we're a luxury tour operator, so, you know, mostly 5-star, whether it's a tent or whether it's a lodge, city hotel, small city hotel, villa in the bush, your creature comforts are well taken care of.
And another question, what is a typical tour day like?
Oh, you will see that in the presentation. I did that a day on safaris,
Right.
two safari rides each day, and basically laying the day down for you, because it's similar, it's exactly the same in every destination, right? The time you leave the camp might be a little bit different, or the time you get back might be a little bit different, but the day folds out the way it does. And so if you just take a few minutes, it's near the front of the presentation, so you can get to it pretty easily.
And I'll send the link out as soon as I upload it, so everybody can watch it, the people who had some difficulty joining. But thank you for joining us later and being persevering.
No, I love it.
Any last
Africa's my
questions?
passion. As I said, I've been there 50, 60 times. It's in my blood.
What's your accent from, Pamela?
I was born in New Zealand.
Okay.
Yeah, but I headed up the South African Tourism Board here on the, well, originally on the West Coast for many years. So I was in Africa 3 or 4 times every year since 1978.
Just a blend then.
You have a good combination there of influences.
Yes.
Well, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you,
Yeah.
Pamela, for your
Asante Sana. Go well.
Really
Take care.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye.